Sheldon Primus.
Welcome to the Safety Consultant Show with Sheldon Primus, where we blend safety smarts with business brilliance and a pinch of Sheldon's signature wit. Whether you're a safety pro, a fresh-faced consultant, or just safety curious, get ready for a show that'll educate, entertain, and elevate your safety game. Let's dive into the art of consulting with your safety Sherpa himself, Sheldon Primus.
This episode is powered by Safety FM.
Well, Miss Andrea Foster-Mack on the show. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I am just, enjoying being on your show and excited to kind of talk with everybody about safety and health.
Awesome. And you're still in Texas, right?
Yes, still in Texas. Live on a cattle ranch, which is kind of unique, but here in Franklin, Texas, and enjoy just being able to be, out in the open and surrounded by cows and family and friends. So
you're on a cattle ranch. That's new information. Now I got to think of some more questions for that.
Yeah, we've been out here for about 4 years. So, when COVID kind of hit, we left the city and came out to our cattle ranch and have been just loving it being out here. And our kids love the schools that they're in now. So it's been a great transition for us.
Oh, that's great. And you guys probably have some stories about, cows and all the bovine health. And do you ever have to deliver calves and all that?
I have, yes. I've had to help pull a cow or a calf once or twice before, which has been interesting. And it was great because I actually had on a watch and I was like, oh, I don't have time to take the watch off. So it was all there. It was fantastic.
Oh, that is awesome.
It was great.
Is that watch completely done? You're never wearing it again?
No, I just washed it off and kept wearing it. It was fine. It's fine.
I would look at the watch and be like, you're dead to me. I can't wear you again.
No, it's just part of life. That's how I see it. I'm like, yeah, it's part of life. It'll all wash off. It's fine.
Oh, man, that's great. That's one of those things that I've just, I see it and I know that it's part of Americana is, and everywhere actually. And, you've got to live the ranching life. But it's just, to me, it's just so cowboyish and, old school. And it's so glamorous in not in the term of, a Hollywood glamour, but I just mean the way that it's been portrayed in movies and everything else. It makes you seem like you're, literally going through a Clint Eastwood movie or spaghetti Western.
I feel like that some days. I really do. I feel like that some days, but most of the time it's pretty fun and pretty kind of, easygoing and just, it's a real simpler kind of easier lifestyle, which is, get out of the hustle and bustle of the city, which is nice sometimes.
Yeah. Are you getting those fifth wheels with the trucks and you got the horses inside and you're traveling with them?
No. We have none of that. No.
The cows are staying right here. Yeah, horses. Yeah. I assumed you have horses. Do you? Or is that not necessarily true?
No, we don't. I, kind of as a safety person, I'm just like, no, my daughter would love a horse. And I just, I'm very much, it's great because, my husband will be out there on the tractor and I cordon it off a huge radius. And I'm like, nope, nobody go within this way. And so I'm very much very safety aware. My kids are incredibly safety aware. And so, when I was with Career Safe, we actually helped start that SAFE program, so Safety in Agriculture for Youth. And so, I had my kids go through it. I made sure that they understand how to be safe around livestock, around animals. Before we even remotely thought about moving out here, I was like, you are doing all of these things, and I'm going to make sure that you know how to be safe while you're out here as well. So,
oh, that's awesome. That's our business. You just can't turn it off. You're constantly thinking safety, and it's just there's no off. You're looking at everything. You're like, all right, hazard exposure.
It's just constant. It's constant. It's like, oh, that's not safe. That's not good. Okay, let's go over here then. So,
does your husband have to redirect you the way my wife does sometimes? Is just let it go, honey. Just let it go.
He's learned. We've been married for almost 20 years now, so he's learned that it's easier just to be like, oh, that's not it. Okay, let's do this then. Let's not do the non-safe thing. Let's, in our early marriage, there's a time or two that I came home and he was literally on the roof in flip-flops. And I was like, what are you doing?
Oh, what a fail. Epic fail.
It's like, what just happened? And it was great because he saw me driving in and he was trying to get off the roof as fast as he could before I caught him. And it was like, are you kidding me?
Busted.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's
He hasn't done anything like that since, but that was definitely like a wow kind of moment.
That reminds me, years ago, there was a TOSHA agent for Tennessee OSHA, Wendy Lee, and Wendy Lee was second in charge when Steve was there. And she had contractors working at her house from TOSHA, and she came in and she saw them on the roof, and she's like, do you guys know where I work?
Yeah. Do you know what I do, guys? I mean...
Yeah, that's great. And for those of you that do not know, Andrea and I met from, we had to redo our certification so we could keep teaching the 10 and 30-hour construction and general industry classes. So we got those classes in, we met and it was like, oh, that's cool. We had similar backgrounds because of some of the companies I work with as a subject matter expert in training for them. And that's when she dropped the bomb on me and told me that when she worked with Career Safe, that literally thousands of people were under her for the 10 and 30-hour classes. And I was like, wow, how do you even do that? It's fascinating to me. So tell me the structure. Just how did that even work when you were back working with them?
So I kind of started with them in about 2004 and came on, and it was actually just a 5-hour just general awareness safety program. It was a great program, but it was just 5 hours. And so worked with some really just fantastic people at CareerSafe, and then with, at OSHA, at OTI, and at some of the ed centers. And just, we kind of all realized that we needed to be able to provide more to these young workers beyond just 5 hours of safety training. It just wasn't enough. And so I think back to my first job, and Sheldon, I'm sure you remember your first job, but my first job, I was at a movie theater. And it was first day on the job, and somebody had gotten sick in the bathroom, and I was the newbie. And so they're like, here's paper towels, go clean it up. So I used my shoe and paper towels, and I was cleaning it up. And then I'm just sitting there thinking this is really gross. I don't have gloves. I don't have the crystals. There's nothing. It's just my hands and paper towels and my shoe. And I kind of, when I joined CareerSafe, I always kind of had that thought in the back of my mind of nobody taught me anything. I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. And I was just kind of thrown out there. And so that was kind of, for me, the premise behind a lot of this is we have to be able to prepare our young workers for more. We have to be able to provide them that, that foundation of safety. That way, when they go out into industry, when they leave high school, when they, leave college, they understand the importance of it and they have that foundation of it. And so that's really, why, part of the reason CareerSafe, was developed was to help do that. It was truly a passion of Dr. Larry Teverbaum. He's the CEO of CareerSafe. And so, him and I worked really, really hard and worked with some other great leaders at Federal OSHA, at OTI, and at those various ed centers that we partnered with, and some of the career and technical student organizations like Skills USA and FFA to help bring about a program that would truly educate young workers, because, we all know kids learn different than adults do, and yes, just truly be able to bring about a program that would create that impactful change and really make that difference. And so we worked with NIOSH, we worked with the CDC, we worked with OSHA, and just helped kind of create this really great program, CareerSafe, that is, focused at young workers. And they've trained over, when I was there, it was 2 million. It's growing even more so. So over 2 million, young workers have my name on their card. And so I'll get calls even now, hey, I need my OSHA card redone, or I need this. I'm like, oh, okay, well, reach out to CareerSafe. And so, it's just, it was such an incredible experience to be able to work with everybody there, and just, even go and talk with the Senate and the House subcommittees on safety and health, and talk with them about like why this is so important, why it's so critical that we have these programs for young workers, and just to try to be able to secure funding for all that. So that's kind of how it started. It started really as just a small 5-hour program, and then we expanded it when federal OSHA started to allow the online OSHA courses. We redid it. I actually became an authorized trainer myself. Became an authorized trainer in the general industry as well as construction, and then kept going and even got my CalOSHA. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm all in safety. And I've always kind of been that way, but it really was, I mean, it has truly been a passion that I didn't realize I had. I was kind of like a daredevil of a kid. And so now I'm like, oh no, I would never do that. There's but when you know so much, it's like, oh, but definitely I think, it started with just a 5-hour safety program. And then it's now grown into this huge company that has really made a huge impact for a lot of people, which is great.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Great story. And, truly knowing that you did pretty much the lobbyist work there too, trying to make sure that the online program got off the ground. And I know OSHA has like a hit or miss relationship with online training, to say the least. And I believe they're actually going to start revisiting. At last, I thought it was like 8 or 9 people that are allowed to actually do the online. And I know that they're kind of, OSHA was kind of pressured or being pressured to say, all right, let's go back to this and kind of expand it a little bit because it does work. But you're on the front line of that.
Yeah, I was. It's funny because it's, when they first started, it was a small group, the same basically 10 providers. But a lot of those providers have now kind of been gobbled up by private equity firms and just different organizations. And then there's been a lot of mergers and a lot of acquisitions. And so it's interesting to see, where it has all kind of landed. So in the very beginning, it was a lot of smaller kind of mom and pop shops that were like truly out there to create online training to make it compliant with what OSHA needed. So there was a lot of control that OSHA had. And then as it's progressed, they still have that control, of course, but I think it became such a large endeavor, and so many people started to really gravitate to doing the online training that, I think OSHA is definitely now saying, okay, we have to reevaluate this. We need to look at this and look at maybe other ways, because you think about where technology is now, right? And how much technology has grown since 2004 and 5 and 6 to where it is now. And so, being able to have programs that meet the learners where they're at is so incredibly powerful, opposed to saying, you have to do this. Because let's be honest, if you look at the OSHA regulations, at no point do they ever say, just take the OSHA 10 and you're good, or just take the OSHA 30 and you're good, right? Yeah. They don't say that. So they don't. And so, and OSHA even has on their website where it says, this is not, considered the end all be all. And so I think a lot of organizations and a lot of people and a lot of consultants, this is a huge opportunity to be able to say, hey, OSHA 10 and 30 is great, but what about that online or that in-person training requirement? What about that hands-on element? What about that, specific site-specific training element that the 10 and 30 aren't meeting because the 10 and 30 aren't specific to your site or to your hazard or to your industry. So I think that in my mind, there's a lot of room where people could come in and say, hey, 10 and 30 is great, but what are you doing to make this, to train on this other requirement? Like, how are you making sure that your employees are being trained on those specific, requirements that OSHA does have?
Yeah, no, that's true. And then usually what I tell people that I coach and I work them through the part of being a consultant, I say that 10 and 30 is there to get your foot in the door. You get your foot in the door with doing a 10, you get your foot in the door doing a 30. And at that point, you could provide other services too. But once you get in there, you could actually see the dysfunction if it's that, or you could see the missing programs, whatever. And now you could quote unquote upsell, if you would.
Right.
It's
Figure
like
out ways to help them beyond just the 10 and 30. I love it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I know you've been a consultant for several years yourself. So tell us about that journey when you decided that, all right, I could do this myself. I don't need to be a safety person for someone else. Let's go ahead and start the compliance, safety, and health service.
Yeah, no. So I was over at, with another organization, and, one of their leaders was just like, you could do this. And they were more of an HR focused organization. And so, I'd built their EHS platform, and then their private equity firm decided to go in a different direction. And so, one of the leaders there was like, if anyone could do this, you could do this. You need to go do this. And he was very helpful and instrumental in like helping me kind of figure out the ways to navigate that, which was great. So I started at Safety, Compliance, and Health, and I still work with that organization a lot to help kind of facilitate development of injury and illness prevention plans, help facilitate, development of, the CalOSHA workplace violence prevention plans, and doing those site audits for those organizations there in California. So sometimes I think, as a consultant or as individuals, we need somebody else to tell us, hey, you can do this. Like, you have the power, like you have the capacity, you have the experience, you can do this. And so really just having that kind of push was really, really helpful. And it's been going great. I've had a lot of organizations that I've worked with, built out their emergency action plans, built out a lot of policies, done a lot of site safety hazard assessments, workplace violence hazard assessments, because, that's kind of a new thing out there in California, and there's a definite need for it. And so being able to help organizations, do walkthroughs and say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? If somebody came in here with a weapon, where would your people go? Because it's beyond training, right? So we can provide the training, people can do the online training, but what as consultants are we offering beyond just that training? So how are we helping make sure that people are safe? How are we helping make sure that people go home at the end of the day? And, you can train somebody all day long, but there's still going to be other issues and other things that can happen, right? And so you don't know, who's walking down the street, who maybe has ill intent. And so if you can look at somebody's, site and say, look, here's a potential issue for workplace violence because, do you have signs on the outside that say, make sure that you have video cameras? Do you have basically an alarm or a button to notify emergency responders or to know, that you need help? And have you had that conversation with your first responders in your area? And that was a really big one that a lot of the organizations I had talked with didn't have. And they said, well, we haven't done that yet. And I said, well, you've also told me that your front door is locked. And the only way people can get in is if you buzz them in. So if your front door is locked, then how is the that is seconds that the first responder is going to have to go to the back door then. So that's a conversation you need to go ahead and have with them to let them know that, hey, if we ever call for an emergency, an active shooter or something, come to the back door immediately. That will be the unlocked door. Just being able to have those conversations with people. And that's where, I think a lot of consultants can make a really big difference out there for EH&S and in industries is by having those conversations, doing those site audits, being able to be there and have that, hands-on approach. And that's, and that's kind of one of the things that, from compliance, safety, and health, I've transitioned into another role with EHS Insight. And so that's where, I'm excited because I get to work with consultants one-on-one and help them, partner with us and be able to have that platform and be able to just really offer something unique and something just really technologically advanced out there to their clients beyond just training. It goes beyond that. It's so much more. It's so much more than just training. It's not just checking a box. Yes, I trained that person. It is so much more than that.
Yeah, and I always think observation, let's say it that way, is usually the companies that are just now getting out of what we call normally occurring reactive management, the norm. They start getting out of that, and usually the first thing they go through is like all their accident investigations or whatever it leads to. Worker wasn't trained. And I'm like, that's a component. Yes, you got to make sure that's component. But not only is it worker's not trained, maybe the worker actually went through your class. Was it boring? Did it actually hit the topics that you should have? Did you have some sort of test or something that showed that the person understood what they had? Was it in the language they understood? So all of that, where worker wasn't trained, seems to just assume that you're giving, knock down, drag out, best training ever, when literally most people don't even spend the time in training. They're still showing videos of, people with afros and walking around with, that terrible music in the background with the wah-wah pedal on the guitar, And you're like, what kind of training is this?
I don't remember seeing this training. This is not what I agreed to. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I do tell consultants, yes, all of us are trainers. That's a lot of the supplemental income that we have to do is usually training. We're not always going out and doing assessments. We're not always going out and do mock OSHA audits and working with insurance companies all the time. During the lulls, we train. And that's generally what consultants will do. But I also feel like the reliance on the training as being the end all be all is in the first stage of consulting. When you truly have to go beyond there and think critically, that there is a symptom that you need to address. The training is a portion of, maybe a deficiency or something, but generally speaking, when there's workplace violence issues, when there's issues with psychological safety, training, that, we're a zero tolerance place, that's not going to go that far, really.
Right.
And that's your passion is, the workplace violence, and you've done speaking and everything. And I'm imagining you're probably up to ISO 45003 and getting into that as well. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I'm starting that process. And so for me, it's, the workplace violence. Back to that first time job. So when I was at the movie theater, one of the girls was robbed while she was checking somebody out. And I luckily was, in the back cleaning up vomit apparently. But, I missed that whole segment, but I remember coming out and everybody was just kind of like, oh my gosh, and shocked. And so I remember thinking, were we supposed to do something? Was there a policy, or did I miss something? Like, I didn't get trained on that, because, you go to training because it is important. Like, what do you do if that happens? What do you do in that situation? And so, even as a young kid, I still think that in the back of my mind was like, I feel like there should have been more. I feel like there should have been like something else, because if you come into a situation and you don't know what's happening, there's not been an alarm, there's not been a notification, there hasn't been a system that has told, an alert, and you just walk in, you're going to be kind of potentially one of the first victims. So we want to make sure that, we have the training, but then we also have those policies and those procedures in place to make sure that everyone's safe.
Yeah, no, that's it's almost universal when you just feel like your company did not protect you in those situations, that there's something missing. Why didn't they protect us? And the workforce then gets to such a degree that they lose trust, and then you start your turnover cycle, because now you can't get people to even refer you to a friend, because they can't. The worker can't trust you, and they're looking for a way to get out of that system. So, yeah, that's wow. You learned a lot of lessons. What kind of movie theater was that?
They're out of business. Sorry, they're no longer in business. But it was in a mall, and so I really thought, oh, I'm in a mall, it'll be fine. Apparently not. So,
a blockbuster, right? That far back.
I mean, don't date me, but thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Another thing that I was thinking that I have to ask you, I know with HES Insight that you're doing a lot of the data that you created before, and now you have a whole company that's incorporating some of the stuff that you thought of years ago. So that must be like one of these full circle moments for you for when you first started out, incorporating data to the robust system that you guys have right now. So tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so it's actually funny. I was at NSC in New Orleans last year, and was walking around the trade show floor, because as a consultant, we want to see all the things and take all the things in. And I had an opportunity, and I went and saw this EHS Insight, and I learned about it and talked with one of the head guys that kind of came up with it and figured it all out and built it and everything. And he truly, when I left there, I was like, I want to work for them. Like, this is the future of where EHS needs to go. This is like data management. This is like where this is the transition, the next logical transition for safety to go in this direction. You think you've got the training, which is great. You got to have the training. But what do you do once you have the training, right? How do you manage the data? How do you make sure that the data that you have is accurate and good? And then what do you do with that data? And so that's where kind of, I thought it was really interesting that EHS Insight they actually reached out to me and said, hey, we'd really love to have you come on as, our strategic partnership, manager, and help develop this partnership program for us. And they had the idea of partnering with EHS consultants. So working with consultants all across the country, actually all across the world, to help provide EHS Insight, become EHS Insight certified, and then be able to provide this platform. So that, data management platform and safety solution to their clients. And so it gives consultants the ability to go out there and have this incredibly robust, platform that can manage everything from health encounters, compliance tasks, everything, environmental aspects, and management, and it just hazard recognition, everything. So it allows organizations to basically take their data, quantify it, understand where the risks truly are, and then be able to apply that knowledge and figure out how to fix it, whether it's, we need to do training on this, whether it's, is the data that we're putting in there actually correct? And so that's where our new AI tools come into play, which is great because they actually go through and, you're filling out a form and it's like, maybe you should add more information, whatever, just he fell. And that's, a lot of times when we see form submissions, it's he fell. Okay, well, why did he fall? What was he doing? What was the job task he was doing? How did he fall? Was it a slip? Did he trip? Because when you say he fell, there's a huge range of options for he fell. And one of our new AI tools actually kind of helps prompt, the individuals who are putting that data in there to make sure that it's robust enough. And then, our system allows consultants to be able to look at that data and pull accurate reports and actually quantify that and be able to go to their clients and say, hey, look, this is what is going on. The biggest one for me was the SIF precursor, because I look at it, I'm like, it's almost like a magic ball. It's going to tell you the future. It's so cool, but it's a SIF precursor detection tool. It's there to help spot those potential risks, right? So before they escalate, before somebody gets killed or injured, it's a predictive analysis tool that, it's really there to help spot those potential serious injuries or fatalities, which to me is cool because it's just predicting what potentially could happen based off of accurate data that's been inputted by all the members of your organization that then can say, hey, this is a potential issue that you have. You need to fix it. And how can you fix it? And that's where partnering with these consultants, these on-site individuals that, we're looking at working with, comes into play. It's a great opportunity in my mind. It's kind of a very cool full circle moment for me to look at it and say, hey, help kind of start that, the OSHA 10 early stages, had a part of that a little bit. And then just to be able to see, felt like that was the future then, and now I feel like this is truly the future now of where EH&S needs to go and where it is moving in that direction. So I think it's a really cool kind of full circle moment for me, for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And for those of you that may not be familiar, SIF is the acronym SIF for Significant Injury Fatalities. So when you really start looking at those data, that type of data, you really are saving lives, not just, keeping people from ankle sprains. You're at that point, you're really helping them beyond that point. And it tells me like your system, and just I got myself some notes here so I didn't forget. But in listening to what you're saying here, it seems like we're taking lagging indicators, looking for predictors, and then looking for patterns. The patterns then now gets into a leading indicator of safety and health. And then you're using conversational AI to help ask better questions.
Correct. As well as we do a mathematical formulation, which is a little bit different than a lot of other individuals and a lot of other programs that might be out there. So it just kind of takes a different kind of look. And we also use, we have a language modifier that is EHS based. So, it's working with that jargon that we're all used to, that we understand. And so it's going beyond just what a basic AI would go. It's going much more in depth when it comes to health and safety.
Yeah. So it's, you've trained an AI persona, if you would, to understand safety and health questions and decision making and what are hazard controls and everything else. So now is someone's don't have to spend the time, truly prompting and creating that conversational AI. You guys did that section. Now you have something, and they could go ahead and start from here's my problem. Is that
right. Exactly?
Oh man. Nailed it.
And so now we're looking for partners. So if anyone is interested in partnering and joining this initiative with me, I would love to talk with you. So you can actually go on EHS Insight's website, ehsinsight.com, and be able to go to underneath contacts. It's right there underneath company. You'll see where it says partnerships. And so you can click on that, fill out a form, and then expect a call or an email from me.
Yeah, who are you looking for as far as your target market for partners and partnerships?
So we're looking for, great question. We're looking for organizations that, for our EHS consultants, we're looking for those that, have a background in EHS, have some experience, that, are interested in going on site and working with clients, and then, would prefer somebody in, the mid-range or even some, entry-level EHS consultants that are just starting out. Because, you've got to get your foot in the door somewhere, right? And so if you are tenacious and I talk with you and I'm like, yes, you are the kind of person that we definitely want, then, we'll start kind of moving forward. So that's just kind of right now looking at a lot of different opportunities, working with a lot of different organizations as well, beyond just EHS consultants. So we're working with some mutuals and insurance providers, all kinds of different organizations to help kind of build out our partnership model, because it really is, it's going to be, in essence, a collective of organizations and people working together to help, make a positive impact for our world and really make a change when it comes to EH&S.
And no, that's great. And knowing that the paradigm is shifting enough in our industry that not only are you guys embracing the use of AI, you found a good way of getting that conversational AI to tackle big problems, and so that's cutting edge. And I forgot to mention that. Back to the agencies and the organizations who do the online OSHA, I'm a subject matter expert for 3 out of the 9. So whenever I get the information that they want me to, hey, review this course or review that course, I always have to keep, segmenting which client is which, so I don't, cross their programs. But if anybody ever takes those classes, usually my tests are the ones where I make all the above the wrong answer. You know, the one that you have all the above, and I punish people for being lazy.
Read all the question. Read everything. Don't just go directly to all the above. That's the lesson learned. I love it.
So all you taking your online classes, if you ever got that wrong for all the above or none of the above, that's me. You took my
It was a Sheldon question.
That's the only way that people know it's me, because other than that, I'm the anonymous face in the background writing the courses or reviewing the courses. So I had to throw that in.
I love it.
Does your technology include some of the blockchain technology that you would see? Not like you're going to give out Bitcoin or anything, but some of the blockchain technology with like smart contracts and the way that you could easily check from one transaction to the next in such a coherent and repeatable and enforceable way that the data now is something that we could use for proof of ISO 45001, 45003, VPP, Voluntary Protection Program sites, stuff like that.
It is weird. That's kind of one of the next targeted directions that, we're looking at working within. But no, that's a great idea. From what I know, I don't believe it does, but that's definitely not to say that, that's not something on our radar for the future. So I think, we do everything from, incident management to, JSAs, all the way to, work observations, onboarding, safety drills, all of those kind of different vendor management, all of those kind of different things. But I do love that idea, because being able to manage your ISO and everything would be so incredibly powerful. I know within certain forms, you can have different precursors. And then I also know within some of our forms that, like, if you like an OSHA 300, right, you have to have certain requirements and stuff. And so our system actually provides and makes those requirements part of, like, when you're doing that audit. So it has it in there that it will not let you have to fill out all the things precisely. Otherwise, it won't accept it.
Oh, good. So you're truly almost there then. So I don't know. You might have to make that the Sheldon revision of the program. Call it the Primus. It's the new Primus revision.
Exactly. I love it.
Another thing that I have to ask you about, again, since you're really passionate about violence prevention and you've got solutions for that, and with CalOSHA going through their actual standard now that has been revised, I just literally had a bird fly into our window. If you heard that big bang,
no!
It flew away, but it just flew. It did not do a hazard assessment as to.
Did not. Oh, no. There's no stopping him.
But I know that you truly try to get workers and or should say employers to start thinking about that. I only, even recently, quite honestly, I did an interview several years ago with one of my colleagues from the COST program. She used to be an instructor, and she really dedicates her career in safety to female workers and try to get them to feel safe in the workplace. She was telling me things that I honestly didn't even think about, like assaults in the workplace for female workers, sexual and physical assaults. And, that's all workers with the physical and everything. But I honestly was naive as to some environments being that toxic. And that's only one segment of the workforce, the people who identify as women. What are you really seeing? What's reality like? Just to
yeah, and it is. And I think so. That the CalOSHA rule was pretty. It kind of was pretty new, and the issue that I saw when I talked with a lot of different organizations and a lot of different employees as well, because I would interview employees, was that they didn't fully understand what all was underneath workplace violence. So yelling right? Of course, physical, but also verbal and mental abuse or mental assault and verbal assault. Those are also aspects of workplace violence that a lot of people just, they're just like, it's fine. That's just Ted. That's all, that's just Ted. That's his personality. No, if it, because that's also a sign, right? So that is a precursor to a potentially more violent situation that could happen. So your organization needs to, really address that policy. If you have a nonviolent policy and somebody is yelling and cussing and just really frustrated and just like being over the top, you need to have somebody address that with that individual. And so, what I was seeing a lot of times with especially a lot of female workers that I talked to was they didn't understand that they had already been a victim of workplace violence and that they were or currently still in a situation of workplace violence. And, the organizations, they said, well, we have a nonviolent policy and everything, but their policies weren't written down. It was kind of like, oh, we verbally say we have a nonviolence policy. And so through the exercise of, working with me, they started to say, oh, we really need to do that. And we need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to have this. And we should make sure that we have this in place. And so by the end of it, I would be talking with the CEO, and they would have a list of, 2 or 3 pages of action items of things that they needed to do to help address everything from verbal altercations with employee and employees to, physical altercations and being in, I think people also forget that when you're walking to your car and you're still on property of your organization, that's also considered workplace violence. And so making sure that everybody is aware at all times, because that's one of those instances that it can be the most, the easiest to get attacked is you're out in the open and you're going to your car and you're maybe not paying attention. And so just having those conversations with employers to make sure that they're training their employees on what they need to do, that they need to be alert, that they need to have the proper lighting, that they need to, if they have security guards, that they need to utilize those security guards if it's late at night. And so that to me was the most interesting, is the fact that a lot of individuals did not even realize that they had already been a victim of workplace violence.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And my next follow-up question, I know you got to go because I'm not going to take your whole time for today, but do you encourage such systems as employee assistance programs and programs where there might be, maybe you can't say meditation in a workplace, but simple, where you have people do something to address either anger issues or even just problems with feeling like they get out of control and now they need to cope? Is that also part of the service that you would think we as consultants should start looking for our clients and saying, all right, violence prevention here, did you think about a mindfulness class, or have you tried yoga, something in your workplace?
100%. So like I think EAPs, employee assistance programs, are fantastic. They are a great resource. And then, there's Mental Health First Aid is a great organization that I've taken and become a mental health first aider. And they have some really great information, great resources. And then a mindfulness, any time that you can, as an organization, give your employees a health break, a mental health break, a physical health break, an environmental health break, just to let them just decompress. I think you're going to see so much return on that investment, just because, we aren't machines. We can't go 24/7, 365 and never have a down day. We have to be able to find what release works for us and be able to use that release and not feel like we're going to be subjugated because we are asking either for a mental health day or we're asking for that, to be able to meditate or something like that. And so I think if an organization has the means and the ability to offer mindfulness training, definitely it's a great program. I've gone through it before. I think it's great. I apply it in my own personal life with my kids. And, I think it's something that if you can truly be mindful then you can truly make a difference either as a consultant or whatever you are doing in your life. You can make an impact with whatever you choose to do, honestly.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you. You verified something I was thinking. I was like, hey, that seems to be one of the solutions. If you're going to do some controls, that seems to be one of the control factors that I would put in there.
Definitely. Yep. That and mental health, because those are the two that really, they kind of go hand in hand. And so I think mental health and mindfulness training, de-escalation training, having the conversation about substance misuse. I think those are all really important conversations when it comes to workplace violence and workplace violence prevention that as an organization should be addressed.
All right, man. Substance misuse. I completely forgot to even because I know you've got the discipline there too. Can you give us one quick thing? Here's a scenario. Maybe you could I'll give you a scenario base. I usually have some students that they are working in one of those states that they either recently legalized marijuana or legalized other drugs, because there's other ones legalized, and they always ask me, well, what do we do now with our policy? And I said, what's your current policy with any kind of use and misuse? I said, it's not going to change if it's legal or not. It's going to be pretty much what your company's policy. And yes, testing may end up having to evolve from what we're currently seeing, but besides just the testing, is this person currently impaired, is what I mean by testing, then your policy should still be your policy. If you have a zero tolerance, it's your policy, no matter if it's legal or not. So am I steering people in the wrong way, or is that honestly what you tell them?
No, that's the approach I take as well. Is, that is why we have policies, right? That's why we have requirements. That's why we have laws. That's why we have regulations. One of the things that I ran into a lot of times is your HR professionals are going to look to your safety people, your safety consultants, or your safety, individuals to help, because if they keep in HR, their hands are kind of tied. So they can't really test a lot of times. But if it's a safety issue and you can say, hey, I'm testing either everyone, or I really do feel like this person is impaired, or, what have you, if it truly is a safety issue, make sure it's written in your policy that you have the ability to test, and that you are very upfront and honest with your workers on, their first day that you hire them, that this is our policy. This is, we're for zero tolerance. We are zero tolerance. If you have any of these kind of, signs or symptoms, we will test you. Just make sure that you spell it out. I agree 100%. If it is your policy, it's your policy. There's no need to change it, because just because the state law changed in that state, you're still putting people at risk. If you are inebriated or intoxicated or high, and you're coming to work under the influence, you are putting yourself and everybody that you work with at risk as well, no matter what substance you're under, because you're not in that correct state of mind.
All right. Whew, some more vindication. You nailed it today. Tell everybody how to reach you, and especially for your partnership program. I want to, since my audience is specifically for consultants and those who are about to be consultants, they're making their plan. So go ahead and tell them how to reach out to you.
Thank you. So feel free to go to EHS Insight. So EHSINSIGHT.com. And then underneath the company tab, you'll see partnership program on the right-hand side underneath contact us. Click on that. There will be some great information on that. And then there'll also be a form that you can fill out and submit. And then I'll follow up with you. If you want to reach out to me with regards to compliance, safety, and health, that website is compliancesafetyandhealth.com as well. So feel free either way. And I would love to talk with anyone and be able to see how I can help. And like I said, we are very much so looking forward to growing this partnership program and just really making that difference and making that impact for EH&S across the country and across the world, actually.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad you mentioned that globally. So globally, everybody listening, you could do this too. Follow that link, ehsinsight.com. And once you get there, look for the partnership tab or drop down, and you will be able to get a hold of Andrea, and then you can talk to her and tell her all you know about bovine health and how to make sure that she doesn't wear a watch next time she delivers a cow.
Take my watch off. I'm going to take my watch off.
That's your JSA. Step 1, take off watch. Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you again.
You too, Sheldon. Thank you so much for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed this, so thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a wrap for today's safety show. Remember, safety isn't just about hard hats and caution signs. It's about business smarts too. Thanks for joining us on the Safety Consultant Show with Sheldon Primus. Until next time, stay safe, stay savvy, and keep consulting like a boss. Go get 'em. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast or broadcast are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within the past hour, only examples. It should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the positions of the company. No part of this podcast or broadcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast or broadcast, Sheldon Primus.
This episode has been powered by Safety FM.